Hello there, people. Welcome to another episode of the Struggling Hunters. We're currently going to be going over episode 16 tonight, which is kind of a small feat of its own, but it's been fun. And you got me, Joe here, and you got Eric over there.
How you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you.
Yeah, I know that's kind of a dumb thing to say on a podcast. How you guys doing tonight? Like it's a live show.
Right. Step on down.
Guys, I'll work on that in the future.
Those of you that are listening to this in the evening, hopefully your evening is going great. Hopefully, or those that are listening to this another time of the day, hopefully your evening will be great.
Yeah, if you're listening to this in the morning, then it's probably because you worked the late shift. I don't know.
Boom.
Hey, you haven't done that one in a while.
True. But anyways, guys, again, thank you for watching. We appreciate it. Wasn't for you guys, we would have no one watching us, and it'd just be two guys talking.
That's something that we used to do back in the day, just two talking. Now it's still us two talking, but now we got people listening to us, so we're moving up in the world. People actually care what we have to say, and we appreciate that too.
We do. We appreciate everyone. I wanted to. Dan, I think he's one of our listeners. He actually stopped by the other day and gave me an Idaho proclamation for like the fish and game stuff, so I can look up to see how to hunt Idaho and what the rules and laws are there. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
But anyways, we'll get going a little bit here. So this weekend went and did some scouting. It's kind of fun. I didn't see any deer or any bucks, I should say, where I was hoping to, and nothing was there. So went scouting, went to another part of the unit to try to learn and trying to find like a plan B. And in doing so, I did find a pretty good looking elk. Or I guess I shouldn't say I didn't find it. Someone else did. It was a road. I was driving the road, and there was someone that was pulled over, and they're looking across the canyon, and I was just gonna let them, do their thing, not really bother them, and I passed them, and I gave them a little wave, and then kind of out of the corner of my eye, I look back over my shoulder, and I can just see this huge set of antlers, across the canyon. I was like, man, if I can see that far and they look huge, it has to be pretty good. I was hoping it was a deer. I was like, that's a huge deer. That's what I'm looking for. That's mine. So I back up to where these people were parked and got out and talked to them, like, oh yeah, there's a big elk over there. I was like, awesome. So I pulled out my spotting scope and gave him my binoculars, let him look at it as I was setting up my spotting scope and whatnot. And come to find out it was his wife that even spotted it. They're cruising along in their Razor, and she's like, oh, look, an elk. But anyway, yeah, so that was kind of my highlight of the weekend. At least it was a 6x7, pretty good bull. I think it's probably the biggest bull that I've seen in person, or live on the hoof. Like I've seen pretty big ones in Cabela's storehouses or on TV. They're seeing some big ones, but that's probably the biggest one I've seen alive.
Yeah, that it looked huge. I mean, you got a picture out of it, obviously, and sent it to me, and I couldn't believe how big that thing was. It was nice. It was really nice. You're getting better at taking pictures through your spotting scope too.
I'm working on it. That one, it wasn't all that wind. So I got the, like a little cheap little tripod. So that kind of affects a little bit because it's not as sturdy.
Yeah.
So like when the wind blows, it moves it, and when it's focused out that far, it doesn't really have any little bumps. Really makes it blurry. So like what I found I have to do, I have to go into my phone and set a timer. So I have to hit the take button, and it counts down. And usually by the time it's done counting, it's back to setting still, and you can take a decent picture. That's one of the tricks I found that I have to do.
Hey, that's a good trick. That might help some other fellow hunters out there to learn how to just the what is that called? Just the countdown picture?
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, countdown. I can't remember the actual term for it, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I use.
Yeah, I
So
know what you're talking about anyway.
it might be smarter though too to turn it on video and just let it record on video and just pull pictures out of the video. That's probably what I should do too. I've been taking pictures. I should probably try to take videos.
Yeah, that actually sounds like an even better idea. Look
Yeah,
at you. You're brilliant.
I know, right? You should listen to me more.
I know I should. But I probably won't still.
But anyways, I think one of the things too though is the fact that like seeing this elk is I was out there. I wouldn't say that. So the funny thing, I got looking at my on my Onyx maps, and as I was driving up this road, I got looking at the country, and I was like, I bet back up in there would be a good elk spot, or even probably even deer. I should get back on and look at that for deer, but I was like, that kind of off a little bit. And it's steep country, and so I before I got to the spot where we saw the elk, I sat and I pulled up Onyx and I dropped a pin up on the hillside across the road. Like that'd probably be a good spot to check out. And as I drive around the road and went around like the hillside, it's kind of hard to explain because the hill kind of came downhill to where I was. And there's another valley going up and another valley going up to the left where I was heading. And as I went around to the left on the road, and then I was on the south facing slope of the north. So so long story short, the pin I put down was close to where the elk that I saw. So I kind of, validated me a little bit. Like, hey, look at that. I was within a couple hundred yards of where an elk was, or
Yeah.
I dropped a pin.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But
Well, that's where we'll be going probably if we get
if everything works out for the deer hunt, yeah,
yeah. That'll be nice.
it will be. It's going to be.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe
but,
maybe that elk will still be in that same spot.
True, but the only downside is that it's a limited entry elk area, bull elk. So,
yeah.
but I can hunt a spike elk in it.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I can't hunt that particular elk, but I can still hunt elk in that area.
Could you make the argument that that thing just has a lot of spikes?
Well, I guess I probably could, but I think it's worded branched antlers.
Oh.
They can't branch.
Yeah. Those guys are pretty smart with all their wording.
True. Yeah. So that was pretty fun. I enjoyed that. It was a lot of luck to find it driving down the road, but but I was out, like that was the big thing, is I was out in the type of area where they would be. Oh, and the other interesting thing too, so that I've kind of put, like, as I'm trying to learn and trying to tuck away nuggets, and trying to file things, is so this elk stood there and kind of watched us. Like, he was a ways away. Like, there's, he was across there a ways, and he was watching us. And so the other guy and his wife and kids were there. Like, they weren't being noisy or nothing, like they were just doing their little thing, talking and whatnot. And I was talking to the guy. We weren't being too noisy. the elk was watching us, and then he kind of got tired of us being there. You can kind of tell. So he kind of worked his way up the hill further, and he would stop and then look back over at us. And then finally the guy's like, all right, well, I'm going to take off and go back to my camping spot. I think he was heading back to his camping spot. Anyway, so he takes off, and I'm like, all right, I'm done. So I'm starting to put my spotting scope and my tripod away. And as I'm doing so, there's this one set of razor comes by, and not too far behind him, there's another set of razors coming by, and that was like all that elk could handle. He took off. And so as a learning point for me was although this elk was more or less a safe distance away, like by this point he was far enough that I wouldn't even dreamed of taking a shot with a rifle. We were already too close for his comfort. And these were just razors going down the road, and he had enough of it and he took off.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that. I was listening to a podcast, and I wish I remember which one, because I'd give him a shout out. But I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I want to say it was with Mark Kenyon, but I'm not 100% sure. But the guy that he was talking to was talking about that kind of stuff, like vehicles versus four-wheelers or razors, if you will. He said he's like, in my opinion, he says, I can't remember if they were talking about elk or deer. I feel like they were talking about deer, but the takeaway is he said I feel like these animals, they get more irritated at four-wheelers and side-by-sides more so than they do vehicles, from his opinion. And I was like, that's interesting.
Well, it is kind of interesting too. Like, well,
I mean, I think some of your point was just that he kind of felt like he hung around there long enough,
and there's enough activity coming by, and the razors were loud enough that he felt, I guess, violated, or that his comfort zone his bubble was popped, even though this distance was, like I said, it was way out of range. I wouldn't even have dreamed of sending a shot, but it was close enough for him.
Yeah.
But on that note of, the razor, so, like when I'm hunting up here above Bountiful, I'll go out and set up a trail camera, and I'll be down there a ways, in a canyon somewhere. And I can just hear like every razor or every dirt bike, every four-wheeler that goes by, and but it just kind of, it frustrates me, they're not really doing anything to affect. Well, I guess they kind of are, but they're not like riding right beside me down the canyon. They're up on the road, but hearing them go by all the time is just, it kind of, I was like, man, there's an awful lot of them.
That's interesting. So, I guess follow-up question: Do you notice a decrease of wild game activity whenever you hear the four-wheelers? And
I can't honestly answer that, because I don't think hunting up there, it's not like I've ever seen a lot to begin with. Like, I've always had to hunt hard up there.
Right.
So I can't honestly say that, because it's always been a hard area to hunt.
Probably because there's always traffic up there.
Well, that and a handful of years ago when I first started hunting up there, so like 6-7 years ago, I remember one year going up there, you could not, like, opening morning, there was a camper, a tent, or a pickup anywhere you could put off the side of the road. Like, if there was an open spot, there was something in it heading all the way up the hill, up the mountain.
Yeah. Almost like even if the road gets like a tad bit wider, there's almost a camper there.
Yeah. That's how it was. Like, it just blew my mind. And so, like, it's already a high pressured area to begin with. So that area particularly, I can't really say for sure, just because it's always been a hard area.
Yeah, that area that I was turkey hunting this spring, it was the same thing. The first weekend that we went out there to hunt turkey, man, there was campers. I don't know if everybody was turkey hunting or if they're just getting out to camp. But I was amazed. Every spot was nothing but turkey hunters or campers, I mean. And
Yeah.
I mean literally, like, if there was a wide spot in the road, there was a camper sitting there. It seemed, I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but Jesus, I was like, I was amazed. I was just amazed how I so I'm thinking, like, I was kind of checking that area out for elk hunting too, and it's a beautiful area, and I'd imagine there's probably wild game up there, but it's not that big of an area. So, well, I shouldn't say that. It's probably bigger than I'm giving it credit for, because I wasn't able to check out all of it. But for as many campers and stuff that are out there, I'm almost betting that during elk season, it's probably hammered pretty hard, that area. And it's probably the same site as far as campers in every spot. So
I wonder
yeah.
if we should do that one, like during, that would be kind of fun in the years to come, just like kind of dry, since Colorado has like three different seasons or four?
There's 4.
So it would be fun to just to kind of like opening weekend of every season, just drive around the different, choose an area or something and just drive around the area just to see how packed it is.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Just, not that you're really gaining anything. I mean, I guess you're kind of taking in some information, but it'd just be kind of interesting just to kind of, I don't know. I guess if it's an area you're hunting, just to see how much pressure's been there.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. I kind of like that idea. I kind of wouldn't mind drawing for first season rifle.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is to my knowledge, the over the counter stuff is pretty much second and third season.
Uh-huh.
And you've been up there, it gets hit pretty hard. I would say second season actually doesn't get hit as hard as third for some reason. But with that said, I'd be curious to know. Well, I feel like by the end of first season, the elk are kind of on to what's going on, and
yeah, they're trying to start to get pushed towards their zones where they don't feel the pressure as much.
exactly. And I mean, even by first season rifle, I mean, I think rifle is even probably worse, but I mean, you've already went through muzzleloader and archery seasons. And so
Right.
by even first season, I feel like they kind of get the pressure. And also, I mean, it's not really a secret. Archery's been getting so much more popular over the last few years that I think more and more people are trying to get into that. So the pressure, they've already felt quite a bit of pressure by the time my second season comes, or even the third season. I mean, I've kind of switched back and forth the last few years. Well, I did third season for like 3 years in a row. And then I've done second season a couple years, trying to figure out which one I like better. So,
And the jury's still out for that one, for which season you like better.
yeah. Well, now I want to get in on the draws and try to get a first season.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
But, yeah, so long and short, back to the beginning. That's what I did this weekend. I did end up doing a little bit of hike, found some does. Didn't see any antlered deer, but still I got a couple more weeks and then the hunt will be going. But I think, then to get to we'll switch gears a little bit, topics, and Eric picked up a Kodiak tent. I think we talked about it a couple times on the podcast.
Yeah, I think we briefly mentioned it, just pretty much that I got a new one. Before we move on to the topic, though, the one takeaway though is at least you know that there's elk in that area. At least you've seen a bull elk, like I mean, you kind of gives you a little more confidence that you actually know that there's some elk in there. So if everything goes right, we can maybe get a spike in there.
True. That's what. Yeah, yeah. So, and the other thing, yeah. So we can at least we got it. We have a place, an X on the map to begin with and work around.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
A good starting point.
Yeah.
But I will say it was fun, like to see something and then to see something pretty, at least decent to me, like that
Oh,
was,
that thing was huge.
yeah. And I'm sure by the time this comes out, I'll have it posted to our, or maybe I'll even try to put a picture it in on for our YouTube video that we're doing now.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That'd be
But
awesome. But yeah, so sorry, I had to just add that in, but to get on our topic tonight, like Joe was saying, um, I bought a Kodiak tent earlier this summer, springtime, I think it was, somewhere in there. And I bought a Kodiak canvas tent. What it is basically, well, I just said it. It's a canvas tent.
what is it, Eric? I missed it.
But it's kind of, it's pretty cool. Like, so some people might know the company Spring Bar, right? Is that their,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think it is Spring Bar.
yeah. Well, it's close enough. But if you know what I'm talking about, then you'll know what it is. Anyways, I'm all over the place right now. What I'm trying to say though is there's another company called Spring Bar that makes canvas tents, and some people might be more familiar with that, but this Kodiak tent company, I really appealed to them just because their tents seemed a little more updated. There was minor upgrades that they did with their tent. From what I understand, I might be chopping this up a little bit, but there was some people that used to work for Spring Bar, and then they broke off and then started the Kodiak canvas tent. And then what they did is they made their own just a few little upgrades, but it's pretty much the same tent as the Spring Bar. It's not your classic wall tent. It has a floor in it, fairly thick floor too. For the Kodiak, that is. But anyways, the reason that we're talking about tents though is just kind of what you might consider for your later season hunts or just hunts in general. I guess like why I chose a tent, because I was kind of debating early on before I got the tent of maybe trying to get a small like little camper or a tent. But I chose the tent route just for right now, just because there's something about just doing the tent thing, like I feel like I'm kind of more with nature in a tent. I know that sounds weird, but like I'm just not ready to graduate to a camper. Like I feel like I'm not trying to offend anybody that has campers, but I feel like graduating to a camper kind of means that I'm getting old, and I'm not ready to admit that yet. So I kind of wanted to stay with the tent. Plus, the tent in the long run was probably a little cheaper. I mean, I could have got those little small pop-ups for about the same price as the canvas tent, maybe a little more, but in general, probably, it would have been an older pop-up camper. But
Well, then you have maintenance and stuff on it too.
the maintenance, tires,
bearings, and actually, I'm sure it's not a big deal, but that's something you got to be mindful of every year before you take it out, or like tires aired up, or the bearings good. Is it is the tent cleaned out? Is I don't know. Is all my gray water taken? Is it ready for the winter?
And actually one other major factor to it all is where I live is a lovely HOA, so I'd have to probably pay for an extra spot to keep the camper, and it just didn't really make sense right now to do that. So that's why I chose the tent too. That's probably more of the bigger deciding factors is just not really having a good place to put a little pop-up camper or a camper in general.
Gotcha.
So I went with the canvas tent. So that's why I chose the canvas tent. I would say so there's, if you're into backcountry hunts, you're going to want a different tent. You're going to want some of those, $4 or $5, $600, $800 tents that weigh nothing, but and you can barely fit in, but they'll last you on the backcountry hunts, where this canvas hunt is strictly a base camp kind of tent, unless you have some pack mules or something. I was thinking about that. I was like, man, it'd be cool if we did, though, because then we could go way back and stir up some trouble.
True. We'll have to look into that.
Yeah. Well, it'd be the because we both kind of want to do more backcountry hunts, but it'd be kind of nice to have some pack mules and horses or something. I mean, later on down the road, maybe
Right.
not to have, but maybe we could get with an outfit or something that we can rent them or something.
True.
Or they guide us through there.
Yeah.
There's something about guides, though, man. I feel like that's like the tent thing. If I ever get an actual guide, like the one nice thing about guides is they're good. They'll get you your elk, but
Right.
I feel like the downfall to having a guide is you're kind of admitting that you're old and you can't hunt. Again, not trying to be offensive. I'm just saying.
Right. No. Well, it kind of goes the other way too. Like, if you want to up your chances on getting something, like that, the guide's going to be great.
Well, okay. Yeah. We're kind of getting off in the weeds again, but let me break it down too. Like, the other thing to all this, even though that, like, I brought this up before, that I want all the best gear out there, and I want everything, and I know the cost of it, but then there's always this part of me that's like, I'm going out to get meat for my family. So how much money do I really want to spend? Like, does it really make sense to pay $3,000 for a guide, or that's probably on the cheaper side, even $3,000 for a guide to go get my meat? Or, I struggle with that all the time. Whenever it comes to
Right.
anything hunting, it's like, I'm trying to make sense of it financially. And I'm like, I'm doing this to feed my family for the winter. So spending all this money just kind of doesn't make sense. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's kind of my look on getting a guide. I respect guides though a lot. I think that they kind of have a tough job because the one thing that I always hear about guides, or from guides even, is they get clients that are not in good shape at all. And so they not only find the elk and give the opportunity to the other people to hunt, but then they find themselves packing it out. And, so I respect guides a ton, but I'm just not ready to ask a guide to guide me. So, but I don't know, maybe one day for the experience.
True.
Because there's that factor too, of just the experience and all different kinds of hunting and
True.
And stuff. But getting back on track with the tent. So the canvas tent is a base camp tent. And the reason that I chose canvas is obviously because a few factors, in my opinion, is the other tents just, they don't hold up to weather as well, right? And I'm kind of going that late October, early November. If I choose third season, it's kind of closer to mid-November, so it's cold out there, and sometimes the weather in general. I've gotten snowed on every year, and for the last couple of years. So with that said, like, just a regular tent. I got one from Cabela's, and I can't remember the brand. I was going to pull it out and look at that actually, but I can't remember the brand of it, but it was like a $300 tent, $350 or something. And it's a decent tent, but it's really just a decent tent for summertime, if you ask me. I could probably get away with taking it out in the backcountry if I really needed to. But even with that one, when the wind kicks up, I mean, just all night long, it's beating up against the tent, and that's all you hear. So that kind of brings me to my next point of why a canvas tent is for one, the weather. Now the other thing is you could put a stove in there. What I've been doing, I haven't used it yet to see how well it works necessarily, but using those Mr. Buddies. A lot of people, I tell people, I'm like, I've had a couple of conversations. They're like, "Oh, you're gonna put a stove in there?" And I'm like, "Actually, I'm gonna try a Mr. Buddy first." And they kind of like, "Oh, I don't know." I don't know why they hate it, or like kind of hating, throwing a little hate my way. But here's my reason that I'm trying to stay away from the stove is I do have a 14 by 10 Kodiak canvas tent, and it's pretty big, and I got a lot of room in there. But if I put a stove in there, it's gonna cut up so much of my extra room, and I kind of want the extra room for other people being able to sleep in there for one. Kind of have a little extra room to move around, get dressed, get ready for the morning. So I really want to get away with the Mr. Buddy heaters. And am I saying that right, or is it Mr. Heater Buddy? I can't remember.
Mr. Heater or Buddy Heater? I think it's a Buddy Heater.
Yeah, the Mr. Is it even Mr.?
I think. Let's see.
Well, I feel like everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, everyone knows what you're talking about.
But anyway, so and I got I think I got the same size as you have, Joe, but
Mr. Heater. It says Mr. Heater Buddy. I don't know, whatever. Anyways, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah. You have the same size I do, but I think they're in their line of heaters, they're like the medium size heaters. They have one other one that has
a two burner,
and
yeah.
Maybe one day I might. Well, actually, I take that back. I got the little one, the little standalone one with where you hook the smaller propane tanks up to it, and I got that one, and then the medium size one, or the one burner. And so my perspective on that is, I'll use my medium one. I'll hook it up to my propane tank, use it all night long. And then if I wake up in the morning, I'm like, it's still a little nippy in here, I'll just use my smaller one for a few hours or for an hour or whatever to get dressed or whatever, help heat up the tent just a little more. And I should be good, I would think. I mean,
so I've been using that little Mr. Heater for the last 4 years. And I just got a little, like, your normal tent, whatever material it is, nothing special tent. That's what I've been using to heat my little tent up, and I get those, and it's done me just fine. It's maybe not as warm as you could be, but it's definitely taken the chill out of the air. Like I want to get out of bed in the morning when that thing's on.
Yeah.
And I think those one single burner ones, like it's rated for like a 10 by 10 area. So 100 square feet is what they kind of say, like that little bit of a heater can handle. So, you're 10 by 14. So you're kind of on the bigger side. But again, the one thing I like about those canvas tents is that they're, that thicker material being canvas. And so like can hold the heat in a little bit better.
Yeah. They'll hold the heat in a lot better. Well, essentially. And yeah, I think it'll be just fine. I mean, I really do. I think it'll work just fine. And like I said, I got that other one that I'll take up to base camp with me, and in the morning, if it's just a little chilly, I could kick that one on and kind of warm the tent up a little bit, get dressed and ready, and call it good. Another thing that I want to get is they have this. I saw them on Amazon. They're like a little dome light, but they have a fan on them.
Uh-huh.
So I want to get one of those and turn that fan on at night. The idea is when that heater's, because the heat rises and everything kind of, but with that fan, it might help push down the heat just a tad bit to kind of help circulate through the
It. Yeah.
whole tent. So that's kind of because, and that's another reason why I feel like that Mr. Heater will work just fine in that tent, even if it gets a little chilly in there or chilly outside. I mean, because last year, whenever I jumped in your tent, and I mean, I don't know what size that is necessarily, but it's a decent sized tent, and I mean, it heated up your tent just fine. You had it on low all night, I think.
Yeah.
You didn't even have it on high, so
No.
So I don't know. I think it'll be just fine to use that. So
I think it'll definitely improve your living situation, like you be a little more comfortable.
Yeah. So yeah, that tent that I was telling you about that I got at Cabela's, well, it's been a lot of years back now. It's probably been almost 10, but that thing was just, the problem with it is, well, it's not really built for the cold, for one. For two, it's so small. It's hard to get dressed in there, and I know that last year that I used it, that snowstorm came in, and all night long I just kept waking up because the wind was, blowing around the tent, and the tent held up just fine. But, just that tarp material or whatever, flapping against the tent all night long and just kept waking me up. And about the only thing that got me going that next morning was the fact that it was opening day and I was excited to get to hunting. But I remember kind of being a little pretty tired because I was up all night listening to that storm blow through there. So with that said, I mean, that's another thing that the canvas tent will reduce is, I mean, you'll still hear the wind a little bit, but it won't be as bad as that tarp stuff. And let's see. Oh, I said, let's see, and Siri popped up. But yeah, so I feel like that's almost kind of everything that I had for, actually choosing my tent size. So the nice thing about Spring Bar and Kodiak is they have different sizes. I chose the 10x14. A couple reasons why I chose that size is because I was thinking about the extra room. It's I want to say it's like 6 feet 5 inches tall, 6 feet 4 inches tall. So I got plenty of room to stand up and get dressed or whatever. But I also wanted a little extra room for a couple reasons. Is if the weather comes in, it's kind of bad. I'd be able to hang out in the tent and with a little bit of extra room, sit in a chair or something, read a book kind of thing. So that's why I chose the 10x14. Also, I got kids, my wife. So, if they ever want to go out with me, I got plenty of room to carry everybody. And then, and so it's kind of like, just kind of camping with comfort. But with that said, there's other sizes. I want to say there's an 8x8. Well, they just have all kinds of different sizes.
So you can kind of find what you need. There's a size for what you need.
A size for what you need, and they're very durable and strong, and they'll last forever. I know I talked about the stove. Oh, taking the footprint, yeah. So I already kind of said this, but I will put a stove in there if the Mr. Heaters don't work. But I mean, I think they'll work good enough to be all right. But I really don't want to put a stove in that just yet, just because I just don't want it to take up all the room right now. Me and Joe, before the podcast, I was kind of going over with him. I was I would only break this out if we were really planning on sticking it out somewhere for at least a week or so. But I was talking to Joe about one day getting a wall tent for that kind of reason, to kind of have essentially a mess hall, to be able to hang out, cook, everything inside a bigger wall tent. Then I would have a stove for that. But for that 14 by 10, I just don't want to put a stove in it, just because I don't want it to take up all the room. Even though I know it would keep me a lot warmer and stuff, I just rather stay away from having to do that if I don't have to.
Right.
So, and then let's see. Well, I think canvas tents in general, unless you're going to get a big old camper, canvas tents in general are just the best way to go, I think, for base camp kind of hunts. I think they're the most comfortable, the most durable. They hold up just fine. This weekend I put it out or I set it up in front of my house. I kind of got a funny story about that. So I was trying to make a video about how to season the tent, which for those of you that don't know what seasoning means, it basically just means that you get it as wet as you can with your water hose, and then you let it dry. And what you're trying to accomplish there is you get your canvas tent nice and wet, and then as it dries, it'll kind of shrink the canvas, and then make it even more waterproof. So if you are out in the middle of a rainstorm, it won't leak, or it'll prevent it from leaking even more. The one thing I noticed though is doing that, spraying the water hose, the water just beaded right off of the tent. And but so the funny part about it is I was trying to make a video about how to season the tent and check it if it leaks and stuff like that. Man, I swear I got up fairly early. It was Saturday morning, so I got up fairly early to do this, and I kind of wanted to make this little video before people were up and about. And I swear, man, I started getting the tent set up, and it was dead quiet, no neighbors driving around or anything. And I had to set it up so I don't have much of a backyard. I just have a pretty big front yard, so I had to do it in the front, and everybody could see me or whatnot. But I started setting it up, or before I started setting it up, there was nobody out. Started getting that thing set up, and I hit power on the camera, and I swear, man, everybody was driving by, and I had all kinds of looks and everything. I'm like, man, can't do nothing. Can't do nothing in private around here. But I don't know if they were looking at why I had a camera in my face, or why the tent was, or checking out the tent. But yeah, it was kind of comical, man. Just I had a couple people. It seemed like it was either their cars were very familiar to another car, but I think there was a couple cars that drove by the house like a couple times. They drive around the block.
Kicked you out.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. They're like, "Oh, poor guy got kicked out of the house. You must have really messed up this weekend."
It's Saturday morning.
Yeah, God, what did he do so early in the morning? Must have burnt the pancakes.
Right. Oh.
But yeah, so yeah, that was fun. And then I ended up, so it let it set out there and kind of dry the rest of the way. But then we ended up staying, or me and my son, we stayed the night in the tent out in the front yard. And
Oh, cool.
yeah, it was kind of cool. I realized that there was more traffic around my house than I thought there would be. But then again, it was Saturday night, so what else can I expect?
True.
So, but yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that, and I'm excited to really test that out this winter. I hope that it works as good as I'm predicting it will. I mean, I'd say the biggest thing that I probably have to worry about is is whether that Mr. Heater will actually heat that whole thing up or not.
Right. And I think that, like it's one of those things you kind of think about. So being that the second season, we're in October, it's getting cold, but it's not, it's not like, I mean, it's cold, but it's not the extreme cold. We're still warming up during the day. So it's not like, what I'm guessing I'm getting at is what the heater can put out and how cold it's getting. It's going to be tolerable. It's not going to, I feel like the heater should keep up with the cold. Now I know that it can get colder. The temperatures that time of year are not really predictable. Like it can get down in the teens or in the single digits, which it probably does. But that's not going to happen every year. So I think it'll be a good experience. It'll bring you a better experience for the hunt, for the future.
Yeah, I know. Especially a couple of years ago, I remember waking up cold, waking up freezing cold, and I felt like I couldn't get warm all day
Well,
long.
that's one thing I'll hand it to the guys that go in the back country or whatever, that are just going on a backcountry tent and a sleeping bag. I don't think they really take a heater with them, but they're out there doing it. And I know you do, and I know I do. Like, man, getting up in the morning when it's cold, it's not that fun.
It's hard to get motivated when it's that cold. And
Yeah.
that's something around here where I live. I don't think I'm quite acclimated, so I don't think it's that much colder. Well, it is colder, but kind of like you said, it's not the extreme cold yet. But I go up there and it's 20 degrees cooler than it is
Where you living?
down here where I'm living. So I go up there and I'm not quite acclimated to it. So it just like feels so much colder than what
Right.
it actually is. So I don't know. That's something that I kind of noticed last year, that just seems so much colder.
Yeah, I mean, well, it is going to be a difference because you're at what, 2,000 feet is where you live, maybe 1,800.
Yeah, I think it's more like 35 or 4. You
Maybe-
might be
It probably might be 3,000 feet. I'm probably low balling it, but I think where we're hunting, we're up to 7,000 feet, 6,000 feet.
I think it's 7 or 8.
Is it 7? So yeah, there is going to be a temperature difference.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and then it's just that mountain cool too, being up there. I mean, even in the summer, whenever you wake up first thing in the morning, you're like, ooh, it's kind of cold. It's kind of chilly, the mountain cold.
right.
So, but yeah, I think so to kind of go back on one year, I think I said this already, but one year I used that tent that I got from Cabela's, and it didn't quite cut the mustard. Then I tried to sleep in my pickup because I was like, okay, it's cold enough. I don't want to sleep out in my tent, so I'll sleep in my pickup. That was uncomfortable. So then the next year I thought, well, I'll make a pickup tent out of PVC pipe and tarp. And that worked all right, but I don't know. It still didn't quite cut the mustard. So I finally got tired of trying to rough it like that. And so this year I finally got the canvas tent, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. Probably, you're going to definitely have a better experience. And then for me, I got, just a normal tent, and I was expecting it the last time I had it out, and I got to get it prepped and ready. But I got a pole I got to get replaced, and then the elastic in between the tent poles I got to replace too, just to kind of help it. Like as I'm taking it down and trying to pull the poles out, they get stuck and don't stay connected, so it makes a little bit of a job. But that's one of the things I'll get fixed here shortly, and then be ready for another notch ready for the hunt.
Yeah.
But But I think with that, we'll go ahead and call this a wrap for episode 16. You know, it's been fun talking with Eric tonight. You know, we got some more stuff to do to get ready. And if you're, listening to this one, it's probably going to be the week before my hunt. So, whoever else is listening and archery hunting, good luck getting ready, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Speaking of that, if you're getting ready to go hunting here soon, maybe drop a comment of some of your plans or what you're hoping to accomplish during your archery hunt here in the next 3 weeks, 2 weeks,
Yeah.
2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
So kind of drop a comment, ask a question or two, and we'll try to do our best to answer it in our own particular way.
The only way the struggling hunters can.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's all I got for tonight. So thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Hit the like button, subscribe. We'd like to see that. And again, just thanks so much for listening. We appreciate it. This is fun.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. And that's all I got. So have a good one, guys, and we'll talk to you in the next one.